Joining us now is Mike Davis, Chief Counsel for Nominations on the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary. He's also the founder and president of the Article 3 Project and a former law clerk for U.S. Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. Thank you so much for joining us. So what do you make of the legal ramifications of all of this? It seems we're seeing DA Alvin Bragg recently appointing Matthew Colangelo. What can you tell us about that? What's happening there?
Yeah, so these are bogus non-felonies that Soros-backed Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg is bringing. The prior DA declined these charges at Alvin Bragg's urging when he was in the New York Attorney General's office. The U.S. Attorney in Manhattan declined these charges. The Federal Election Commission declined these charges, and Bragg declined these charges. He started taking heat from the left. So back in December, Alvin Bragg hired senior Justice Department political appointee Matthew Colangelo to come join his office. And Matthew Colangelo has been a political appointee for the Obama White House, the Obama Justice Department under Eric Holder, a top political aide for Labor Secretary Tom Perez, who later went on to be the DNC chairman. Colangelo worked in the White House, the Obama White House, as a top economic aide. He worked at the NAACP for 7 years. He worked for the Democrat New York Attorney General, where his job was to get Trump. They created a position for him to go get Trump. And now Bragg is creating a new position for him in the Manhattan DA's office to get Trump. This just shows that this is part of a pattern by the Democrats to politicize and weaponize our justice system to go after their political opponents, particularly Trump. And it shows that there's clear collusion between the highest ranks in the Biden Justice Department and the Manhattan DA's office.
And in studio, we also have Mark Ruskin with us. Mark, I want to hear your thoughts on what you make of what Mike Davis just said right there.
Well, I think I would agree with everything that Mike has said. And as I was saying before, this is the culmination of a Soros-backed and other backed campaign to have district attorneys elected who are going to not enforce the law. So essentially, I would concur with his judgment here. I would also add that at the arraignment here, it's going to be interesting. He was talking about we were talking about Trump going back to Mar-a-Lago. Has that already been negotiated with the district attorney's office? And are there going to be impositions put or travel restrictions put upon the former president? So the other issue that's I'd like to move on to with regard to the arraignment is who is going to be the arraignment judge? I mean, is that something that's been predetermined? Typically, there's a judge who's assigned to the arraignment part for the day and handles all the arraignments in that court part. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not that's the procedure that's going to be followed today, or are we going to have a special judge assigned to handle the arraignment, which would be a departure from traditional criminal justice procedures in New York. And then the question will be, why is there such a departure? Is it a matter of decorum, or is it because, as many individuals have suggested, that there's a double standard of justice here, and that the former president is not going to be accorded the same rights with regard to an arraignment court as occurs to a typical defendant.
And you mentioned how this is kind of a departure from normal law. And it seems, if we look at history, we've never had a former U.S. president indicted. So, Mike, what do you make of this, and what precedent is this setting? Where do you see this going forward?
Yeah, the Democrats are crossing the Rubicon here. This is, they have politicized and weaponized the justice system at every level. At the federal level, with Garland's special counsel, Jack Smith, looking at the non-crime of a former president having presidential records in the office of former president, which is allowed by the Presidential Records Act. A Democrat DA down in Fulton County, Georgia, looking at the non-crime of a president objecting to the presidential election and lobbying others to do the same. That's permitted by the Electoral Count of 1887. It's allowed by the First Amendment. If this were illegal, Democrats would be in jail for objecting to Republican White House wins in 1969, 2001, 2005, 2017. And Alvin Bragg's case is just a continuation of that coordinated Democrat lawfare to take out Trump because they fear they can't beat him in the polls, so they're simply going to indict him.
And Mike, on that note, you mentioned crossing of the Rubicon. So what can unite America right now? What can make Americans remember why they are American and why they are in this country? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know what? I think the only way, this is not our parents' or grandparents' Democrat Party. These are not liberals who love America and just disagree with conservatives on the best way to get there. These are leftist. These are Marxist. They hate America. They hate equality. They believe in equity. They hate free speech. They believe in censorship. They hate due process. They believe in Me Too and politicized, weaponized prosecutions like we're seeing with Alvin Bragg. What Republicans need to do is give them a healthy dose of their own medicine. State attorneys general, Republican, state attorneys general, Republican DAs, Republican prosecutors need to start getting creative. And also, people need to rally behind President Trump. This is so much bigger than Trump. We need to unite behind him, and we need to send a very strong message. This is unacceptable in America. We're not going to devolve into a third world Marxist hellhole banana republic, which is exactly what George Soros and his puppet prosecutors like Alvin Bragg want us to do.
And it's true that by bringing this indictment, it's a Pandora's box that has been opened up. And once it's open, how do you shut it? If what Mike suggests actually happened and the Republican prosecutors start prosecuting Democrat public officials, you're going to end up with the whole system falling apart, where everybody's prosecuting everybody for reasons which have nothing to do with the criminal justice system, and then we have a judiciary that's weak. Then it's going to just devolve and take us even further from the constitutional principles which we want to return to. So I think that's an additional issue that needs to be taken into mind.
And what do you make of the statements by, say, former Vice President Mike Pence saying, you could indict a ham sandwich, but also no one's above the law? What do you make of that?
Well, as an assistant district attorney, I presented, I would say, hundreds of cases at least to grand juries. And it is true that a grand jury is very easily manipulated by the prosecutor. In a grand jury, the jurors, there are 23 grand jurors in New York, and they vote on whether or not to bring charges against an individual. But they only hear evidence presented by the prosecutor. So it's very tailored towards what the prosecutor and the DA's office is looking to obtain. So it's not, it's meant to insert the public between the power of government and the individual being accused. But unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to the old cliche of anyone being able to indict a ham sandwich, is that if you present the evidence correctly, unfortunately, and people can be indicted for crimes that they have nothing to do with. All that one has to show is probable cause that a crime was committed. It's a very low bar that needs to be crossed.
And Mike, I also want to get your thoughts on that no one's above the law. What do you make of that in this case in regards to Trump?
That is a complete nonsensical chant by Democrats and Trump-deranged rhinos, because sure, no one is above the law, but you're also not below the law. There is not a felony that President Trump could have violated here. At best, what we're looking at is a bookkeeping misdemeanor from 2016 with a 2-year statute of limitations. And this Alvin Bragg is taking a legal theory previously rejected by the prior DA, the U.S. Attorney, the Federal Election Commission, and Bragg himself. He's taken federal law, he's bootstrapping it to New York law. He's creating a novel legal theory that he's going to charge Trump with 34 felonies based upon a bookkeeping error, a bookkeeping misdemeanor at best. I don't even think it was a misdemeanor, but bookkeeping misdemeanor at best from 2016. This is purely political weaponization of the New York County, Manhattan DA's prosecutor's office, and I think this is going to blow up in the Democrats' faces.
Mike Davis, thank you so much for your insights, and Mark Ruskin for joining us in studio. Appreciate both of you for joining us on our special coverage today.